For this versus battle, I'm going to be presenting the scaling a little differently. Today we will be replacing the Saiyans with the Viltrumites themselves, and see if the Saiyan Saga crew of Z fighters has what it takes to survive a Viltrumite invasion. The reason for this is because I've covered so many matchups related to these two verses that I wanted to make a more fun scenario on a very interesting topic. These two universes, in all honesty, could have a pretty cool crossover depending on the time and era of the characters, and you'll get that idea more so when we go over who wins. Anywho, let's not waste any more time and break down if the Z fighters could save Earth from the greatest empire in the universe. Viltrumites, like Saiyans, are a powerful alien race that managed to become so powerful by cutting out the waste of their people and maintaining only the most powerful of warriors. These warriors, of course, all range in strength, but we know at the very least 37 Viltrumites are more than enough to rip the Earth in half. For reference, the amount of energy each Viltrumite would need in order to do this, if they were all destroying Earth on an even proportion, would be enough energy to wipe out continents and even moons with minimal effort. And of course, some Viltrumites are stronger than others, with the strongest one scaling to Mid Series Invincible, who managed to help destroy a planet alongside with his father and Thadeus. The amount of energy Mark needed was enough to destroy small planets, and we know by this point Mark is slightly below Nolan, Conquest, Anissa, and of course the leader of the Viltrumites, Thragg. Now there is context to this feat, of course, that being that Space Racer's gun destabilized the core of the planet, but the calculation takes this into account and still comes out with this result. Now, I think Thragg, out of all the Viltrumites, is the one person you could argue is probably a planet buster on his own comfortably, considering he's much more powerful than the 3 Viltrumites who just managed to pull this off. And if you don't want to accept this, he at least is a threat to the planet Earth itself, whether you like it or not. Anyway, this should mean fodder Viltrumites bare minimum are moon level, with the relevant ones capable of destroying small planets, while Thragg himself is far above this level. We don't know by how much, but it's clear he's in a league of his own. As far as speed goes, I think the average Viltrumite is capable of traveling through space at relativistic speeds, with the top tiers being capable of crossing galaxies within weeks. For reference, you would bare minimum need to be moving millions to billions of times the speed of light in order to pull this off. So if the army decided to just pull an Omni-Man on the planet, the Z fighters would have to be dealing with pretty much speeding bullets that are destroying Earth by the second. Luckily though, the Viltrumites are not the best when it comes to teamwork, and they usually like having a good fight for the sake of entertainment, which is probably why they get compared to the Saiyans so much. The only Viltrumites who scale to this Nolan feat anyway are Nolan himself, Anissa, Conquest, and obviously Thragg. Besides those main 4, I can't really name too many other characters that would scale to this. Now, Viltrumites similar to Saiyans have superhuman strength, speed, and durability, along with the power to fly. Viltrumites as well also have experience in close quarters combat, with the likes of Thragg being able to fight Battle Beast himself, the same warrior who's mastered fighting styles across the galaxy and has his own style of combat. You wouldn't really expect the Invincible verse to have hands compared to the likes of Dragon Ball, but surprisingly, at least the relevant Viltrumites are worthy to note for the discussion. The Viltrumites as well just take ridiculous levels of pain, and the Z fighters need to make sure they're on timing with killing, or else they'll more than likely get the jump on the Z fighters. But enough yapping, man, let's now talk about the Z fighters and how powerful they are compared to the Viltrumites. For this video, I'll be using the manga version of the fighters, as I'm primarily using the source material for this versus battle. Sometimes I like spicing it up, but today we'll keep it simple. Master Roshi and Piccolo were both capable of vaporizing the moon way before everyone got their power increases for the Saiyan saga. After the humans trained with Kami for a few months, they somehow managed to surpass this same Piccolo and Roshi multiple times over, with even Chaozu, yes, even Chaozu, somehow having a power level that surpasses these two. The Piccolo feat itself, funnily enough, based on how casual it was, actually comes out to around large planet level, which would pretty much mean every Z fighter going into the Saiyan saga, including Chaozu, would all be capable of performing this casual feat that Piccolo did on a much more casual level. For reference, Piccolo had a power level of 408, while Yamcha, Tien, and Krillin all managed to reach power levels ranging from 1400 to 1800. They may have been ultimately useless compared to Nappa, but that speaks more so to how strong Nappa was rather than how weak the Z fighters were. Piccolo and Gohan at their peaks would both reach power levels of over 3000, and of course we have Goku, who like Thragg is in his own league. His base form alone is over 2 times stronger than the strongest person there, that being Piccolo, and he can amplify his power to 4 times with the Kaioken technique, which would pretty much mean every Z fighter is large planet level, with Goku being much higher than this. We can apply a similar method of scaling for speed by taking Kid Goku's power level from the early sagas and upscaling the other Z fighters, as a higher power level means you are also faster. Kid Goku with a power level of less than 200 was capable of dodging light-based lasers. And the same casual feat that we mentioned for Piccolo, not only did the calculation break down how strong Piccolo was, but also how fast the beam traveled to the moon, which comes out to around relativistic speeds, meaning by the time of the Z Fighters completing their training, they all should be at the very least a few times faster than light in terms of combat and reaction speed. As far as abilities go, the Z Fighters can all utilize Ki, which allow them to use various techniques. Tien, Piccolo, and Goku can exponentially amp themselves with their charged up attacks. Krillin, Goku, and Tien can all blind enemies, along with their weakest guy in the squad, Chaozu, having psychic powers. Everyone as well, besides maybe young Gohan, should all be above Roshi in hand-to-hand combat, who's known as the god of martial arts and knows every move on Earth. Goku, mind you, even by the time of his first tournament, was already matching him in hand-to-hand and only lost to him due to a height disadvantage. Krillin also has the Destructo Disc, which allows him to kill enemies much more powerful than himself, and I mentioned how Tien can amp himself, but it's specifically with the Tri-Beam, which, mind you, made him go from a Android 17 and 18 victim to moving semi-perfect Cell. Gohan as well also has Rage Boost that could allow him to progress during the fight. And if all hope is lost, of course, Goku has the Spirit Bomb, but I do not think Thragg is letting this happen. Now, with all of this information in mind, let's discuss the battle scenario. Since Raditz is a low-class warrior, this means they'd more than likely send a fodder Viltrumite to handle Goku and Earth, so for this scenario, they will not be fighting irrelevant Viltrumite. It'd probably be one of those randoms that were sent for Nolan, leading into Goku and Piccolo teaming up due to the circumstances. But they wouldn't be nearly as powerful or skilled as Goku and Piccolo. Bare minimum, these Viltrumites are like Moon level, which was a level Piccolo was casually surpassing, who, mind you, Goku is slightly superior to. If you want to try and attribute the Nolan feat to the other Viltrumites and say they should be much faster than Goku and Piccolo, for one, not every Viltrumite is as fast as Nolan, and two, if this Viltrumite was multiple times faster than Goku and Piccolo and tried flying into them, he would literally die on impact. So regardless of what you think, I think Goku and Piccolo come out of this scenario, but we'll say for some reason the Viltrumite warns Thragg of these guys, and in a year Thragg along with the rest of the Viltrum are pulling up and they're going to try and invade Earth. Although Goku isn't dead in this scenario, he ends up training with King Kai, and everything in preparation for the Saiyan saga pretty much happens like in canon, which then leads into the Viltrumite invasion happening with the Z Fighters meeting up in a wasteland. Thragg along with his Viltrumite empire would arrive on the scene, with Thragg more than likely asking for Goku or their strongest. They mention how Goku's gonna be a while, so in the meantime, the Z Fighters would deal with the Viltrumite fodder. Now, if I'm being honest, every Z Fighter on the field individually are far more powerful than any individual Viltrumite, if I'm being honest. Chaozu unironically has a case for him beating up any Viltrumite that isn't Thragg, which in all honesty is kind of funny to think about. But it kind of goes to show how strong the Z Fighters actually are when they are trying to catch up to Goku, with Tien's Tri-Beam more than likely being capable of killing Thragg himself. However, the Viltrumites have one big advantage, and that's speed. Piccolo and the others more than likely wouldn't hit Thragg because he's not going to be stupid and, get hit. But the other Viltrumites, if they want to try and have a decent fight, they are more than likely going to get caught off guard by something, which would then lead to their downfall. But I do not think Thragg himself is really getting hit by any of the Z Fighters. However, I also don't think Thragg is going to be speed blitzing and throwing all of them into the sun, due to the power gap that the Z Fighters have over the Viltrumites, and that's not even me exaggerating. Their best chance in winning is by, throwing them into space? Which, I mean, sure, let's roll with that scenario, and Goku arrives to see Krillin, Gohan, along with all of his friends just dead. Is Goku not just about to go Kaioken off rip? Actually, scratch that. Is he just not gonna go Super Saiyan and then just solo every Viltrumite on the planet? I think something to note for this discussion that's interesting is how violent the Viltrumites are compared to the Saiyans, because if they do manage to pull this off, the only thing they're gonna get out of this is an even angrier Goku. Viltrumites, like Saiyans as well, can't breathe in space either, they just only have more oxygen to pull from when holding their breath. So Goku being sent to space wouldn't even be a valid win con in my opinion. Plus, you'd have to prove that they could even make Goku budge. Actually, do they even get past Yamcha? Seriously, the Z Fighters are more than enough to handle Thragg and his army of Viltrumites. Maybe if he had the entire population and they were all just blitzing through Earth like how Mark Thadeus and Omni-Man did, then you know what? Sure, they bring down the Z Fighters. But they're not even fighting the Z Fighters at that point. They're just, fighting Earth. It's more than likely that these Z Fighters would be able to get the jump on them. If Thragg decides to play with this food, then he'd just get no diff by Tien and Piccolo. I hate everything about